everybody. Welcome to the Cyber Monday show. We have so much to dig into today. So first, we're going to bring on Makeshift. Well, we are joined by an absolute stud, and this is going to be a great time. I'm so happy that we're able to talk to him. Ladies and gentlemen, Tommy DeVoss. Sir, how's it going?
Not too bad. How are you all?
Doing good. Thriving.
It's been a long Monday.
I keep forgetting that it's Monday.
Yeah, I feel like Monday, as a kid, Mondays just kind of like, it's like whatever, it's another day. As an adult, Mondays you feel them different. They're just different.
Yeah, especially the Monday following Super Bowl Sunday.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that needs to be a holiday.
I agree.
For some Cincinnati kids, it is, and they're not too happy about it because they didn't win.
No, I don't. Wait, did they confirm that they get school off even if they lost? I thought it was only if they won.
I mean, you can't tell the kids the Sunday night, like, hey, listen, we lost. You still have to come in. Sucks to suck.
Yeah.
Well, but
it's gonna be a state day of mourning for them.
Yeah.
That's true. That's true. I mean, it's part of being like a Cincinnati kid, right? It's hard enough being a Bengals fan, but then to lose the Super Bowl, that stings a little bit worse. So it's like, just tough, like be a Chiefs fan. Like, come on.
Be a Vikings fan.
Be a Cowboys fan.
What? That's even worse. Unbelievable.
It has been worse for the last 2 decades or so.
I don't know. Chiefs have not had. Oh, shoot. My bad.
We lost him. Oh, there he is.
I thought I touched something and made it disappear.
It's because of the Cowboys fandom. Let's be honest. I'm kidding. Well, sir, thank you for jumping on. And I mean, if everybody that's watching, if they haven't, heard of you yet, which I'm sure that they have, but if they haven't, and for those that are watching on replay, do you mind kind of going through some of your background in cybersecurity? You have just a really cool story, and I mean, you're crushing it in the industry right now, and people need to know who you are.
Absolutely. I started out in security in the early to mid 90s. Started out as a black hat. It was a fun time. Just about every computer on the internet was able to be hacked extremely easily. I spent about 16, 17 years as a black hat. And during that time, I went to federal prison 3 times for being a black hat hacker. I came home from prison in 2010, November 2010. When they released me from prison that time, they ended all of my probation, which part of my probation that I'd been on for 11 years banned me from touching a computer, a cell phone, gaming system, anything like that. So they lift that restriction on me. And I spent the next 2.5 years or so looking for an IT job, which was really hard at the beginning because I had just been in prison in 2010. So it was hard to find companies that were willing to trust me to, touch their computer systems, especially if they had any type of data on people or anything like that. I got lucky and a startup in Richmond gave me a job as a system admin and a developer. I stayed with them until 2016. I got introduced to bug bounties in 2016. And after doing that for about 6 months, I realized I could make a lot more money doing bug bounties than I could a normal job. So I left my job and just did bug bounties, just solely bug bounties up until December of 2020. I got bored in 2020 when COVID and everything hit, and I missed working with people and interacting with people. So I started looking for a job, and now I'm head of application security for a company based in New York City.
Wow, that's legit. That's legit. And if you're watching and you want more, there's actually a really phenomenal Darknet Diaries episode. Goes into a lot more detail. It's really, really good. And actually, I wanted to talk about, one of those interesting things kind of that you were talking about, not only in that episode, Marcus Hutchins, who, has kind of a similar-ish path. Like he also mentioned something similar to what you said in that episode where, black hat doesn't get paid as much as white hats, like in bug bounties, like one of those examples that you bring up. Even just like salaries, one of the things that Marcus Hutchins brings up, there's a lot of people that, may be interested in getting into cybersecurity for some of the wrong reasons. And some of that might be financial incentive. What can you speak more to, how the white hat side really, is more lucrative if money is the incentive over black hats?
I don't know if I would say white hat is more lucrative. It is a significantly safer route. Um, you might be able to make more money if you're doing ransomware and everything if you hit the right companies, but you also have to worry about looking over your shoulder for the rest of your life. And if you are a white hat hacker, you don't have that paranoia. It's really mentally and physically exhausting and draining when you're constantly wondering every time you hear a knock at your door if it's going to be the federal government kicking in your door. And they've kicked in my door 7 times. I do not recommend it. You see on TV where they come to the door and they kick the door in with assault rifles and full like battle gear. That's literally what they do. They act like you are a drug kingpin or something like that, not somebody that's just on a computer. They don't care that you're not going to have weapons and stuff in the house. They're going to treat you as if you're El Chapo and you've got an entire arsenal sitting there protecting you. And the going the white hat route is definitely safer. You can definitely make a lot of money, but the really bad part about it is that because some of us have done so well in bug bounties, everybody thinks that everybody can do that, but it's not that way. Like we're really the oddball out, you know? We get lucky a lot because we're well known. So we get invited to programs earlier. We get special invites to live hacking events. We get special companies that just hit us up and ask us to hack them directly instead of bug bounty programs and stuff. And like I think people's biggest misconception is that they come into this and they quit their day jobs to do bug bounties full time before they've ever gotten their first bounty. And in my opinion, no disrespect to anybody that has done this, but it's the stupidest thing in the world because you're literally gambling with your livelihood, your ability to provide for your family for something that you haven't proven yet. Now, come into bug bounties, do it part time, show that you can actually make a living off of it before you take that plunge to do it full time. It's not for everybody. The fact that we don't get paid every week, we don't even get paid every month sometimes, and you've got companies that will wait 6, 9, 12 months to pay you. It's really, really hard to come into this profession without either a ton of money behind you already so that you're not worried when you don't get paid for 6 months, or something consistent that can bring that money in.
Yeah, I want to say, like, one, I mean, I dang near crap my pants if I get pulled over for going like a couple miles over the speed limit. I can't imagine how you felt when you have people just SWAT kicking in your door and they come in with I would have had an outer body experience at that point, and I'd have been like, you guys have to leave because I just literally just emptied myself out into this room. Like that's
I'm sure they've been around people that have emptied themselves whenever they go in before.
I'm sure that's happened. I'm sure that's happened before. And they honestly don't really care. There is nothing in the world that you can tell them that will make them feel sorry for you or come back another time or anything. They're there and they are taking you away whether you want them to or not.
They kick in your door. Oh, sorry. Did we come in at a bad time? We'll let you clean yourself up. We'll be back in 5. Yeah. But I really do want to touch on real quick the fact that, you know, and I've heard of this a number of times before, and I never jumped into them myself, but I know people that work at, you know, like Bug Crowd and everything. It is, and even people that have done bug bounties on the side, like you were saying, if you're one of those lucky few, you can make somewhat of a living out of this. But for the majority of everybody, do it as like a side gig. Like have your normal 9 to 5 and then do these on the side and have, you know, be making a little bit of extra money when you're able to find these vulnerabilities and, you know, and disclose them responsibly.
Yeah, for sure. It's too many people come into this and think, like, I get hundreds of DMs a day that people think that I've just got some special secret that I can tell them that's going to magically make them start finding critical bugs and they're going to start making hundreds of thousands of dollars. And it's like, it doesn't work that way. It's like, it takes a very, very long time to research things we fail. I can't tell you how many times I have failed to find a bug, significantly more than I've been successful, you know, but it's like, we don't publicize our failures. We only publicize the successes. So people just sit there and they'll look through my Twitter, or they'll look for my HackerOne profile, and they see all of the bounties. But what they don't see is every single time I failed to get an exploit working, or I just looked at a target and didn't find a single bug. And it's like the platforms, they want us to promote these payments because, I mean, they want the publicity. They want to drive in as many new hackers as they can because it helps them. The more hackers you have on your platform, the more likely companies are going to be to come to your platform because you're going to have more people looking at them. But it's such a small fraction of us that can make a really comfortable life out of this, that it's just too many people are thinking that they can just jump into this and do it. I do believe that anybody can make money doing bug bounties, but I do not believe that anybody can make a comfortable living. Now, if you're okay with being able to live off of $10,000 a year, then okay, you can probably get by with only doing. But it's things like where you live is going to play a major factor in that. You've got places where 10,000 American dollars, you can actually live pretty good. But if you're an American hacker, you can't live off of $10,000 a year. Same thing with most of Europe. You can't live off of amounts like that. So don't come into this expecting that you're just going to instantly start making a ton of money.
I was gonna say, if you're making $10,000 a year, your mom's basement's got to be real nice.
I do want to ask a question. I don't want to like put you in a difficult position with this question, but I've seen this as a conversation on Twitter a lot amongst bug bounty hunters and people that are interested in getting in, and a lot of people that have had some less than phenomenal experiences. You know, how protected are bug bounty hunters, especially whenever they're like you said, like it takes a lot of work. How protected are bug bounty hunters in getting their work actually like paid out? Is it like, what's the risk profile? What does that look like for your average bug bounty hunter?
The average bug bounty hunter, they don't have a risk profile. They don't have to worry that somebody is watching the reports that they submit to a platform and that they're going to steal their research and stuff. It's seldom, it doesn't happen near as much as people worry that it happened. Like, I personally do know of a few times that it has happened. My friend Eric today is new. He has had his research stolen at least once or twice. And then people from a program that he submitted it to, they stole credit for it and everything. And it actually caused a big stink. I actually met with the CISO of the company that had that happen on behalf of Eric, and was basically like, things like this can't happen because this is going to make us lose trust in working with your program, and you're not going to be able to benefit from it anymore. And then you have other people like the Log4j stuff. You had some people whose payloads for Log4j were sent to like VMware or something like that, that had a special nuanced cookie or something like that, that they specifically put in their payload. And then suddenly a couple of days later, their exact payload was all over the internet, and they didn't release it, but nobody would admit to being the one that released it and everything. So it does happen occasionally, but most people don't have to worry about that because they're not coming up with groundbreaking research. They're finding web apps that are custom built that might have some vulnerabilities that are just on that website that you're never going to be able to find somewhere else because it's a custom in-house developed app, But for some people, when you got people that are doing more of like browser exploitation and things of that nature, then those guys do have the chance of having their work stolen and everything, just because they're doing stuff that most people can't do. I wish I could do the browser exploitation that some of these guys do upon zone. I would love to be able to go and participate. I keep saying that I'm going to get back into exploit development, like true exploit development, instead of just targeting web apps, but I'm super lazy, so I never go back into it.
Awesome. Yeah, that makes complete sense. That makes complete sense. We got a question here from somebody, from someone in the chat named Austin. What is your preferred fuzzing tool, or do you use a self-made tool? This is insider. Feel free to not, if that's too sensitive, but yeah.
Oh no, I'll answer anything. really don't use much fuzzing tools. When it comes to my personal hacking, the tools that I use, I'll use like Aquatone and things like that for subdomain enumeration. Me and a friend of mine that I used to work with, we wrote a custom screenshot tool that would screenshot a list of URLs for any open web ports and would make a copy of their headers and everything for us. But aside from that kind of automation, I pretty much only use burp repeater, intruder, and turbo intruder, and that's pretty much it. I don't trust automated tooling just because I don't feel that the current versions of automated tooling, I don't think that they can account for every edge case that's out there. And I feel like if you overly rely on automated tools, you're going to miss so much more than you're going to find. When I first started out, I was relying on burp active scan. There was some spider arachnid or something like that, some scanner that would find bugs, and it was finding bugs for me, but everything that I found was a duplicate. So that's why a lot of people come into bug bounties, they're all relying on the exact same automated tooling. And then they're on Twitter complaining, I've got 150 duplicates and no accepted bugs. And it's, well, if you're using the exact same tools as everybody else, you have to expect the exact same results. Like there's no special setting that you can set that's going to make active scan find things for you that it's not going to find for me and the next person, you know? So I personally like to do everything manually.
Yeah, that makes sense. I guess on that note, like how I feel like it must have taken like a minute, right? Getting lots of experience and practice using those tools manually to be able to, and I guess a lot of exposure to all kinds of different web apps and different deployments to kind of understand the different nuances. You know, how much repetition. And I guess the context for this question is a lot of people kind of getting in kind of expect to pick it up like really, really quickly. But, you know, how much repetition does it really take and how much exposure to, I mean, all kinds of different like niche web apps does it take to really get a really good understanding to be able to, you know, start finding these, I guess, I want to say high paying bugs, but just bugs in general.
It definitely takes a lot of repetition. One thing that I personally have done over like for my first year, like I said, I relied pretty much on active auto scanning tools for me. But in about 2017 is when I switched to doing automated or manual stuff from automated. And I started building out my own like custom list. Like I've got a XSS document that has every single payload that has ever worked on any web application for me. I've got it in a text document. Every XSS payload that I've ever seen from a blog post, it's in that XSS document. And then I have one for SSRF, where every single SSRF payload I've ever had work for bypasses, redirects, different encoding types of IP addresses, they're all in this list. And I kind of use them as checklists to go down. And it's like, okay, I find somewhere that I think is SSRF. I open up my SSRF text document and I start taking a couple of them, plugging them into the parameter. I'll see how it reacts. And then, of course, I'll have to tweak them here and there because because of the targets that I go after, it's seldom that I go after like a well-known CMS. Like I target the US government a lot right now on Senate, and they're all custom built apps. So they're not all going to act the same. But a lot of times things that have worked in the past will work again. You just change up a little something here and there. And that's been my approach. I make it a point to read every single disclosed report on HackerOne Hacktivity. I read every single blog post done about hacking, period. I don't even care if it's something that I'll never look at, something that I don't even understand. I still read it because you never know when you'll be looking at some target and something that just clicks in your mind that's like, damn, I know I read something about that. So then you'll try a little trick and it ends up working out for you, you know? The great thing about bug bounties is that people are so willing to share information and share what we've done to be successful that we can all learn from it and learn from others. Another good thing about bug bounties is the fact that none of us think alike. Like we've got three of us right here. If all three of us were to go and attack the exact same web application, sure, we would probably find a couple of the same bugs, but odds are we would each find different bugs or at least different payloads to exploit those bugs, just because we all approach targets different, we all look at things different, and we all think different, you know?
Well, I'd be super lucky to find a bug at all. I'd be like, "Oh, guys, I found something. That's great."
Awesome. I can find bugs on boxes on Hack the Box if that's what we're talking about.
You know, I haven't actually done much on Hack the Box, and I always plan to go and get on there and do it. But then when I have the free time, I always end up playing Xbox or playing my game on my computer instead.
That's funny how that works, right?
Yeah. It's like, I was really hoping that when I got my full-time job, like I knew when I got a full-time job that I was going to take like a pay cut, because I couldn't keep up making $800 to $1 million a year doing bug bounties when I'm also working a full-time job. Because it's like, I sit at a computer for 8 to 10 hours for work. I don't really want to sit there for another 3, 4, 5, 6 hours every single day after work to continue to look for bugs. So my income over the last, I've been at my company now for about 15 months. So my income has taken a major hit, but that's also a lot of my own laziness, you know, like I don't have the determination and stuff that I had when I didn't have a job and I relied on bug bounties. So it's like, if I didn't make this money, I'm really bad with money. I blow a shitload of money on gambling, drugs, traveling, just having a really good life. Like people that follow me on Twitter and Instagram, they see that at times I live a rock star life. I just do whatever the hell I want. I travel where I want, and I have a lot of fun. And bug bounties paid for it for a really long time, but it's kind of, it takes a lot out of you when you have to continuously hack to maintain that type of income. And then you get used to that type of income. And it's like, I still make really good money. I still make like mid 6 figures a year right now, but it's less than what I was making. So I've had to change my lifestyle a bit. And it's like, I mean, I guess first world problems, but it still kind of sucks.
Now, let me ask you this too. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Caleb.
No, mate, go ahead.
No, so I mean, and you had kind of touched on it a little bit where, you were saying like, having to constantly, and I'm sure you were doing a ton of different research and everything when you were doing the bug bounties constantly. Did you ever suffer any burnout from that, where like you literally just sat back and you were just like, I'm not doing this anymore? Like,
I never looked at it as if I was going to be done. I'm ADHD. So for me, when I find something that I like, I hyper focus on it and I have to become the best on it. Like when I play games, you played Call of Duty with me. I am extremely good at Call of Duty because I have an obsession to be the best in the world at anything that I do. Once I reach that plateau, I reach that top spot, I completely lose interest in it and I never want to do it again. It's not fun to me anymore when it's not a challenge. With computers, that's the one thing that I love about computers and hacking. It is absolutely impossible for me to learn everything there is about security, everything there is about programming, and everything there is about hacking. So I can never finish, It's something that I can constantly learn about. And I get burned out all the time, but I found that it's really important to kind of schedule your life so that you are rewarding yourself. If you're just constantly working and everything like that nonstop, what's the point of busting your ass working all the time if you're not going to celebrate your successes and have fun when you are successful? That's why I try and take vacations. Pre-COVID, I would take at least one vacation every month. I would go somewhere for at least 3 to 5 days every single month just to unwind and kind of celebrate the fact that I had a good month, even when I didn't have the greatest month. Like, to me, not having a great month might mean I only made 5 or 10 grand that month. And then I'm still going to celebrate that, just like I just made 100 grand in that month, But I find it's really important to take breaks, reward yourself for the things that you do right. And when you feel yourself getting to that verge of where you're going to be burnt out and you're ready to kind of just quit, take a step back, take a week or 2 weeks, take it off. Don't touch anything whatsoever hacking related. Maybe keep reading some blog posts just so you stay up to date on what's coming out right then. But take those breaks because they're really important for your mental health. Otherwise, it doesn't matter how successful you are. If you burn your mind out, it's going to all be for a waste.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's such good advice. And another question I have, and this is kind of like, for people that are interested in either, going the bug bounty route full time, or, getting like a full time cybersecurity role, as far as like, I don't want to say like necessarily job security, but financial security, I guess we can say. Because like with bug bounty hunting, I'd imagine like as far as like benefits and like healthcare and all that stuff goes, like that's kind of on you. Like that's where the money goes. But with like a full-time job, like that's kind of built into it, not including the salary. How much of a difference does that make, if any? And, how much does that kind of change the calculus between, going full-time bug bounty hunting and full-time, I guess, doing like a 9 to 5?
For me personally, it made a major difference. I've got a 5-year-old daughter. If you're somebody that is single, you have no kids, you have no dependents, nobody that's depending on you, then you can probably get a little bit more leeway with doing the bug bounty thing full time, because you don't have somebody else depending on you for their food, their housing, their clothing, their medical insurance. But once my daughter started to get a little bit older, and it became a lot more important to me to make sure that she is secure, both financially, with place to live. She's got the good things as far as clothing, toys. She's being brought up the right way by her mom mostly. I'm in her life a whole lot more now with the last year or so. But prior to that, because I was just basically running the world, traveling and everything, her mom took care of her a lot more than I did. And it kind of like hit me that like I need to be there more for my daughter, So that was one of the determining factors on me getting a real job, because it came with health insurance for both me and my daughter. It came with a guaranteed income that's more than enough to support me and my daughter in a very comfortable life. And it's really important to me that my daughter never experiences the having to go without something or going to bed hungry or something like that. So anybody that has a dependent, don't go the bug bounty route full time until you have proven to yourself that you can do it and support those that depend on you. Because one of the worst feelings in the world is going to bed at night upset with yourself because your daughter or your son came to you and they wanted something and you had to tell them no because you couldn't afford it,
Man.
Yeah. That makes
I
sense.
can't even imagine that.
So I guess, talking about your current role, how is that? I mean, if you were to dive back in, I guess, to bug bounty hunting now, having, had the experience that you have right now with your current job, kind of getting that insight internally, like you said, running a bug bounty program and getting to see kind of the back end, how, I guess, the sausage is made. How would that impact your bug bounty process, I guess, moving forward?
Running a bug bounty program has given me a newfound respect for not only the teams that are dealing with these bugs, but also the triagers on these programs. For a long time, I was very vocal and hated the HackerOne triagers and the BugCrowd triagers. But after seeing now the type of stuff that they have to deal with, it's kind of made me take a step back and realize that I was probably too harsh on them a lot when I was speaking out against them, because I see firsthand now what they have to deal with, the abuse that they have to put up with, and sometimes the stupidity. Like some of the bugs that they get reported is just, they're better for it than I am, because I have a low tolerance with stupidity, and there's some bugs that I've seen come in that I'm just like, I can't reply to these people because I don't want to lose my job for telling you exactly what I think right now. And it's like, as far as how it would change my approach to bug bounties, I used to target companies a lot more based on how fast they could pay me and everything. And I would just ignore programs and leave programs if they didn't pay me fast enough. But now, seeing how much goes into fixing some of these bugs and all of the moving parts on the back end for the code changes, the testing, the deployment, the retesting, and all of that, it's like it's made me appreciate the process a whole lot more. so that I'm going to be more receptive to working with programs that I probably wouldn't have prior to running my own program. Because it's like, I understand now that a lot of times it's not the program's fault that it takes a long time for a bug to get fixed, you know? Like, they want to get the things fixed. They don't want to have somebody asking them every day or every week or every month, hey, any update? Like, they want to be able to say, hey, this bug's fixed, here's your money. But there's so many things going on the back end that it's just not possible sometimes.
I was going to say, because I do blue team 9 to 5, and I know, like, we have a couple clients and everything that when the whole Log4j thing came out, like, they immediately were sending emails to our company. They're like, hey, are you guys vulnerable to this? Like, when are you guys going to get this, whatever. So I kind of know what you mean, because it was like, well, we can't just throw out an update and fix this. It's like, we have to make sure that this update doesn't break something else. We have update cycles and all this other stuff. So it was like, yeah, like, there's a bunch of other things that this other company has zero idea on how we run things, that, it's like, you got to be patient. We understand this is a high critical vulnerability, but there's other things that we have to do to make sure that we don't break other systems in place.
Yep, and especially when it comes for Log4j, it's like everybody's first thing was, why the hell is a logging system set up so that it would make an outbound request? And it's like, you're not the only ones using this software. You have absolutely no idea how everybody else implements this. And it's like, yeah, we might see it as stupid, but there's somebody out there that their entire infrastructure depended on this one little feature that was added in 2.0, and we can't just remove it, because you have so many people that they don't think about the fact that some companies can't run the most up-to-date version of a software. They're just not able to, because like one of the companies that I've worked for in the past, they're still running their main application on Java 1.6. And the main reason for that is the application is over 50 million lines of Java code, and there's 4 developers that work at this company. The amount of work that it would take to come in and rewrite everything to make it so it would be on, Java 8, 10, something like that now, the amount of work, it would probably cost them millions of dollars that they don't have to come through and update it, So all they can do is pretty much do what they work with, what they've been given, and to a certain extent, like, they don't want to be on this old stuff, but a lot of companies can't afford to spend the money that's required to update legacy systems. And that's why places have to support these legacy systems. I love the legacy systems as a hacker, because that means that it's significantly easier for me to find bugs and get paid for it. But at the same time, I understand why they have to run these legacy systems, why companies like just various software providers have to still support these things that might not have been updated in the last 5 to 10 years, Well,
I mean, even looking at like some of the ICS systems that we have out there, like they have software that runs specifically on stuff like Windows XP and everything. And we sit back and we're like, Windows XP, that was only like 8 different versions ago, but it's like, that software can't run on anything outside of that, because it's just not, they didn't have it future proofed. And even,
well, not even that, there's no way to go into that ICS controller and update it to a new operating system. Like, they just don't have the technical capabilities to go into a water treatment facility and just plug something in to update it. It's not that easy. It's a matter of working with what you got, or replacing the entire system with something that is probably going to cost hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars. And it's like the old saying, if it's not broke, don't fix it, and you don't know that it's broken until somebody hacks your shit and locks you up with ransomware.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, Log4j sounds pretty bad, because it is, but so is losing prod. So don't want to lose prod at all. I want to back up a little bit on the topic of triagers, because I completely forgot. And this is something that, again, I see a lot on Twitter, is people talking about triagers. How difficult is it to be a triager? How difficult is that job? What are some things that people don't really appreciate that triagers do that kind of makes it such a difficult, position to be in?
As far as some of the things that they don't that they do that people don't appreciate. Dealing with the spam, with the people that have no idea what they're doing. They've seen bug bounties in the news, so they go out and use SSLlabs.com to run an SSL scan on your main root domain, and it says that you have like some old encryption version enabled, so they are spamming every website that's on a platform with critical SSL vulnerability in the title, just to find out that it's absolutely meaningless. It's all bullshit. And the one thing to remember is, and it's one of the things that I didn't like about the triagers for a long time, the triagers don't know the systems as well as the programs themselves do. So it's like, I've had this with my program where the triagers would look at a bug and it would appear to be a valid bug, you know? And from first glance, I look at it and it appears to be a valid bug. But then when you actually go through to get it fixed and you're talking to the developers and stuff, and it's like, oh, well, we want it to be that way because of this part of the system over here that has to have this happen so that it can still interact and everything like that. And it's like, it kind of sucks when you're relying on a triager, especially when it's a complex bug, because the triager doesn't know like as much about the infrastructure or the stack of the application you're going against as the developers or the program teams themselves do. So it can take them longer to triage things at times, if they're able to at all. I mean, there's tons of times where the triagers just aren't sure, so they have to send an internal note to the programs themselves and like, hey, we need some help validating this. We don't know enough about this. And I personally love those types of triagers that will ask when they don't know something instead of just rejecting a bug from somebody, because that, I feel, causes a lot of the animosity between researcher and hacker, because they have what they spent X amount of time finding just to have a triager essentially throw it in the trash and say, this is nothing, you wasted your time and effort and everything like that. And then if you're not somebody like me that has good connections with programs or even the platforms where you can raise your grievances and be like, hey, this bug ticket number such and such was closed or didn't understand it, it's a valid bug, can you go and take a look at it for me? I had this happen with Verizon, well, Yahoo now, they're back to Yahoo. But I had that happen quite a bit with Yahoo, where I would have lost hundreds of thousands of dollars if the ruling of the triager would have stuck. But because I had a good relationship, or have a good relationship with Chris and Mark when he worked there, when I knew it was a valid bug, I could hit them up on Slack and be like, hey, this bug got closed. I know it's a valid bug. Can you take a look at it for me? And then they would go take a look and they're like, hey, you know what? You're right. This is a valid bug. We'll get it reopened. But it's not everybody has the pull that I do and some of the other $1 million hackers do, you know? So they can't hit these guys up. So they lose out on bugs. That's one of the reasons that I'm looking into starting. The name of it's a really bad name, because the name of it right now is the Bug Bounty Union. But the union part of it is a really bad description of what I'm trying to do. Essentially, I'm trying to make it so that I'm trying to be a bug bounty advocate, so that when people have a problem with a program or a platform, they can have somebody like me or somebody else that has the type of reach that I have, and they can kind of pull us in so that we can kind of like moderate or mediate, so that way we can try to settle disputes before people go off on Twitter and start leaking people's information and stuff like that, you know? I actually had a couple of meetings with a couple of platforms that I'm not technically allowed to name yet, because we haven't finalized anything, but I'm in talks with a couple of different platforms that really like what I'm trying to do. And we are going to be, through 2022, we're going to be meeting several more times to try to figure out a way that we can formalize this and like actually implement it in a meaningful way. Because one of the problems that I'm not sure how to answer for yet is when you're dealing with a private program. Like, I can't help mediate for a program unless I'm invited to it, because I'm not technically supposed to know the program exists. And you can't give me information about a bug that's not been fixed and things like that, you know? So I'm trying to work with a couple of platforms to figure out how we can kind of get over some of these hurdles, because it's definitely a need there to have somebody like me that can kind of speak on the hacker's behalf. But we've just got to figure out how we can do that and not upset programs and other people, and stay within the confines of the bug bounty briefs, our rules of engagement, and all of that.
So I have a quick question too, and I know this is kind of, it's been thrown around a little bit, you know, and I've seen it on Twitter a couple times too, about like being irresponsible with your vulnerability disclosures. Have you ever, like, I mean, not saying that you've done any yourself, but have you ever had any instances where like you've heard of somebody else maybe doing that because they weren't getting an answer back on a vuln, or like, you know, like, do you think that that's really damaging like the bug bounty reputation?
I think it is. I think that is right up there as far as damaging this industry, as much as the people that are going out of scope when looking for bugs. I personally speak out against disclosing information without permission and going out of scope as often as I get a chance to, because what people don't understand, the instant you disclose information about a bug because they're taking too long, or you think that you get to say 90 days from now, I'm going to release this, whether it's fixed or not. If you're reporting this to the company directly, you have a little bit more leeway. But when you report a bug on a platform, you agree that you will never do this without their permission. So you are technically violating the CFAA every time you do that, because you're seen as a malicious hacker at that point. Same thing with going out of scope. If you do not have written permission to attempt to hack a system, and you do anything whatsoever, that is a violation of CFAA. And all it's going to take is one program manager or legal team to be having a bad day, see that you tried to hack something you weren't supposed to, and the FBI is going to be at your door. And I wouldn't wish that on nobody. They visited me enough. That's why I personally make it a point. I never will go out of scope. And people talk back to me all the time when they see me on Twitter telling people and bashing them for going out of scope, talking about, oh, like, you don't go out of scope. No, you're right. I don't. If I go out of scope and somebody gets pissed off and sends the FBI at me, I go to prison for life if I'm caught illegally hacking again. It's not worth the risk to me. And I do my absolute best to follow the rules of engagement to the letter, because I never want to put myself in the predicament where they can come after me for something, even if it's well-intentioned. It doesn't matter when you broke the law, you know?
Yeah.
I feel like I can think of some famous examples from somebody where they're constantly sharing undisclosed vulnerabilities, but we won't talk about that. We had a question in the chat that it just kind of had me like spaced out for a second thinking about it. Is true anonymity dead?
I believe so. After the Edward Snowden leaks, Edward Snowden proved that the NSA knows everything that every person is doing on this planet on the computer. You know, if you're not going as far as using a thumb drive with Tails installed on it and going to random places, never going to the same place twice, never going somewhere that has cameras, ditching your thumb drive after every single time you use it, it's only a matter of time. If they want you bad enough, they're gonna figure out who you are, you know? If the US government wants to know what you're doing, they have so many loopholes where, yeah, the NSA can't spy on us as Americans. They'll just get the UK or the Australians to do it for them and then give them the information in a back channel way, you know? So I personally think that anybody that is naive enough to think that they can get away with doing illegal acts on the computer, unless you're living in Russia or somewhere that just doesn't give a shit, you're living in a fairy tale land.
Well, and even now it looks like the Russians are kind of locking up, or, well, okay, I say with the ransomware actors, are they locking them up or are they enlisting them into the GRU?
I personally think that they're enlisting them in the GRU, and I don't believe they're really locking them up. I think that they're trying to basically put on a pony, whatever the hell they call that saying, where they're just doing it for looks. Yeah, I think that the Russian government is just doing that to kind of make the U.S. think that, oh, we're going to take a tougher stance on these guys. And yeah, they raided them, but I'll guarantee you those guys were right back out within a couple of days. They might have to change the name of their hacking group or change their online alias, but I don't believe that the Russians are actually arresting them.
I kind of want to talk a bit more about state-sponsored stuff, because this is something that I feel like we, as an industry, we talk about a little bit, but at least on like cybersecurity Twitter, maybe I just haven't found the circles yet. I just haven't seen a lot of it. And given the, some of the, I guess, geopolitical context of right now, that's kind of insane to me. Like, how are we not talking about this right now? What are your thoughts right now, and just kind of like the threat level that we're in right now as cybersecurity professionals, and some of the threats that we're really kind of looking at in a not too distant future?
My big thing when it comes to state-sponsored hacking is I think the U.S. government are the biggest two-faced hypocrites on the planet. We want to sit here and bash Russia and China for hacking our hackers, hacking our companies. We literally do the exact same thing to them, but when they do it at us, we cry foul and act like it's just some terrible thing that they're doing. But then at the exact same time, the NSA is hacking every single person within their government and their military and stuff, like the only ones that I think they kind of have a legitimate reason to go after are the Chinese, and that's mainly because there's a lot of state-sponsored espionage, as far as corporate espionage being done by the Chinese. There's a lot more Chinese hackers that are hacking U.S. corporations to steal trade secrets, but you can't really get mad at them, at their state-sponsored hackers that are hacking our government and our military, because we are doing the exact same thing, Yeah,
it's like the pot calling the kettle black.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, I don't know. It drives me nuts that we are so hypocritical when it comes to it. And it's like,
but to be fair too, I think every country does that. Like,
oh, absolutely.
Russia's over there with Putin, and Putin's like, oh, they're doing stuff to us. It's like, well, you're doing stuff to us too. Like, it's going back and forth, and we're just gonna sit back and complain about it because we can.
Between the U.S. and Israel, we're the two biggest countries that do our best to pretend like we're doing nothing wrong, when we literally rank right up there in the top 3 or 5 of the worst ones out there committing these cyber crimes. We just don't want to admit it. And it's like, the U.S. isn't much different than Russia. Like, we just talked about, the Russians are finally starting to arrest the malware actors and stuff like that. If you're an American hacker and you're out there hacking Russian and Chinese banks and government and websites and stuff like that, the U.S. government's not doing anything to you, I mean, you got P4X just coming out there openly admitting to targeting North Korea because they tried to hack him last year or the year before. And it's like, if we really gave a shit, then they would have arrested him, because he openly admitted that he was breaking the CFAA. But because he's targeting, nothing against P4X, I want that to be very clear. I wholeheartedly support what he does. And if I didn't have the threat of life in prison over my head, I would definitely join FUNK. I would absolutely do it. But I can't take that risk with the threat of life and being taken away from my daughter. So I don't want this to be seen as me like dissing him or saying that what he's doing is wrong. But it's just an example of the U.S. being a hypocrite, because we allow, now, I mean, we can't say we allow, but we don't go after and pursue American hackers that are attacking foreign nations as much as, or any more or less than other nations go after their own, Now, if they're out there stealing bank information from Russians and stuff like that, then they might do something about it. But even that is not very likely in my eyes, But that's mainly because the only time it really gets, I don't trust Western media. And I think that the problem is that the U.S. doesn't get called out enough for the negative things that we do. And we're really quick to make a major story out of Russia or Russian hackers doing this or that, when American hackers, both state-sponsored and otherwise, are doing the same stuff, you know? But it doesn't fit the narrative of Russia's the big bad enemy or China's the big bad enemy, so it doesn't get as much publicity. It doesn't get talk time on the radio shows, the news shows, in the newspaper and everything.
Gotcha. I guess kind of zooming in a little bit more for kind of us day-to-day folk, you know, where we don't really have much control over policy at a grand scale, right? You know, what are some things to kind of keep an eye out, if anything? Is it really different, you know, setting up defensive controls for, you know, a nation state, you know, situation versus like a ransomware threat actor versus, you know, some other cyber criminal versus like even a bug bounty hunter, like, or is it pretty much all more or less
the general public honestly has absolutely nothing to worry about as far as being targeted, especially by a nation state like that, you know? If you're not a government employee or an employee of a aerospace or defense space or something like that, if you're not an employee or very close family to somebody in that industry, the likelihood of you being targeted yourself or being hacked is almost non-existent. Now, most normal people, when they get hacked, they themselves don't get hacked. A website gets hacked that has their username and passwords that they use the same one across every website. So then that one website gets compromised, and now everywhere where you shared those same credentials, that could be compromised as well. But generally speaking, especially us here in America, we don't have much of a threat profile of being directly hacked anymore. It used to be a lot more back in the 90s. Like me personally, I would purposely go and hack home computers. Like I would hack the people that had the DSL connections, the cable connections, or T1s, because I wanted to use their fast internet speed to then do my hacking, targeting the companies and stuff like that, you know? But it's evolved to a point now where most of the time when people get hacked, it wasn't super highly targeted. It was more of a lucky break, you know, because you installed some smart device in your house that for some stupid reason opened up a public web port that the hacker managed to scan and find. They weren't targeting you. They were targeting everybody that ran that smart thermostat or that smart microwave or something like that, you know? So as far as what people can do to kind of like protect themselves, keep security patches installed. Don't put off installing your patch Tuesday or whatever the hell it is, Microsoft. I don't use Windows, so I don't know when they do them, but install security updates. Do research before you start buying these smart devices, you know? Don't just go to Best Buy and buy something that can connect to your phone over the internet so that you can make your living room warmer before you get home, or cooler, or start your crock pot or whatever while you're not out or whatever, you know? Because it's like people think those devices are innocent, but it's a foothole into your system, you know? And more often than not, if you install it and if it's publicly available, somebody's going to try to hack it. That doesn't mean they were targeting you specifically. Hackers nowadays don't really go for targeted attacks. They are targeting specific vulnerabilities, and they're casting a huge net to see how many things that they can hack. And then a lot of times when they do that, they don't do anything with the information aside from throw a mirror of botnet or something like that on it, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, I do love it whenever my smart kettle is mining for crypto before I get home. I think that's such a cool feature. I really thank my hackers for installing that for me. And I mean, it doesn't mean anything if I don't really get any of that crypto. It's, you know,
well, they saved you the trouble. That just means that when it gets hacked, you just go change the wallet address, and that way you start getting the fraction of a fraction of a fraction of a Litecoin or Monero or whatever the hell it is that they're mining nowadays.
Yeah.
See, now we have a legit conversation we need to have outside the podcast, because I'm pretty sure my smart TV out in the living room is doing something like that.
Yeah, you thought you were watching Netflix.
Man, I'm telling you.
Solana right now.
I was questioning why it was buffering every 10 seconds, and I'm hardwired into the router. This is so weird.
I personally am not a big fan of all the smart devices, just because it's like it opens up the possibility of a foothold into your network. And it's like, not to sound conceited or anything, but I'm pretty well known when it comes to cybersecurity. So I personally automatically assume that I am going to be targeted by people that want to know what I know, as far as like it's well known that I hack the government and the military, and I do believe that I've been targeted by state-sponsored hackers, because you get access to my systems. Well, you then get the credentials that I use to go and test these applications and these networks and stuff, everything, you know? So I don't like the thought of putting these smart devices that you can't update, that you can't change hard-coded passwords and stuff like that, putting them on my network. That's why Windows is not allowed in my house. Like, legitimately, the only Windows manufactured device that is allowed in my house is my Xbox Series X. There is not a single other Windows thing, period, that is allowed in my house. And that's not saying that it's that much easier to hack Windows or anything like that, but it's just that it's much more targeted. Like, there's more people that are targeting Windows. So I don't even use Mac. Oh, I use a Mac for work, but I personally use Fedora Linux. And I've been a Linux person for like 23 years now. And Linux definitely has its problems. And nowadays, threat actors are definitely changing things up. So for the longest time, you didn't have to worry about viruses and worms and stuff if you were using a Mac or Linux. But now they're actually starting to write them, targeting them as well, you know?
Yeah, so you mean to say that despite popular belief, Linux is not unhackable? This is upsetting.
Absolutely. There's only one computer system in the world that is unhackable, and that is one that's powered off.
Powered off and buried, and can't have a human touch it.
Yep.
Lead box.
Yeah, it doesn't need to have a human touch it. We've proven with Stuxnet that air gaps and stuff means nothing. So if your computer is powered on, where there's a will, there's a way. And somebody can find a way to do it. But if your computer is turned off and has no power, well, you cannot hack a computer if it's not turned on.
I feel like to your point on IoT and smart houses and smart devices and stuff like that, like, I don't know if any of you guys remember the Disney Channel movie Smart House.
Yes.
Way ahead of its time. But
yeah.
Wow.
Well, and Back to the Future Part 2, when they went to the future and he had his house that was completely like voice controlled and all of that stuff. They had a lot of that, and that was back in what, late 80s, early 90s when that movie came out.
Wild. Like, I mean, just what a prediction, you know, kind of like The Simpsons. I bet you there's a Simpsons episode.
Are we really going down that rabbit hole with The Simpsons now?
See, they got it wrong with the Bengals winning the Super Bowl, so tough play for them.
I was really upset about that, because me and my friends that I'm here with, we actually went and placed a couple of bets that had where we were predicting the final score, and we put like between $25 and $100, and we would have won like tens of thousands of dollars if the final score would have been 34-31.
That's tight enough. I mean, yeah, but that's still a lot of points scored. That's
the whole second half, we're sitting there and we're calculating it, and we're like, all right, we need the Bengals to score 2 more touchdowns, and then we need the Rams to score 2 more touchdowns, miss an extra point, and kick a field goal, and all kinds of shit. And we were like, we still got a shot. But then once the fourth quarter kicked around, we were like, all right, it's probably not going to happen. But it was one of those things that you kind of, if you're a gambler like I am, you had to at least put the bet in just in case, because you'd have felt like an idiot if you didn't, and it actually hit, you know? And I mean, it cost me $50. So $50 for a chance to win like 25 grand. I'll take that bet any day.
I feel like that's how I watch football with like fantasy football, where I'm like, okay, I need the kicker to score like 16 field goals for me to have a chance.
And all of them 50 yards or more.
Yeah, legit. It's shocker when that doesn't happen because Vinatieri retired and no one else is going to do that. So I'm kind of screwed. But yeah, but a second example was like Mr. Robot. And I know that that's such an extreme
love that show. I love that show. People that know me in real life tell me all the time that I'm like the real life version of Elliot because I take the opiate painkillers for my back. I get the same way. I am a lot more sociable when I actually take them compared to a complete introvert when I don't. And back in the day, I would literally sit there and somebody would piss me off. I'd bust out a computer out of my book bag. I'd take their entire city off the internet and things like that. I'm much better now. I don't do none of that stuff anymore. Just a disclaimer there. That was a long time ago. Like I was an anon I still consider myself an anon because I still believe in a lot of what they believe in. I do the protest, but I don't agree with some of the means with which they try to get their message out. I don't agree with hacking a website and leaking everybody's information because you're not hurting. I mean, you're hurting the company to a certain extent, but you're hurting the people that we're supposed to be speaking out and speaking up for, So I do consider myself an anon, but I do not agree with a lot of the actions that anons have as a collective do.
I guess that kind of takes us to like a really interesting point with like hacktivism. And I haven't explored, the nuances of, a lot of it on my own. There's a lot of people, I don't know if we should approach this topic because hacktivism just kind of it's a touchy subject for a lot of people. But, I guess you kind of already shared your thoughts on it. Just, it's, I'm
good with sharing. We can go down any rabbit hole you want to. One of the perks of being past, like all of my illegal hacking and everything being in the past, I'm one of the few people that can openly talk about everything that I've done. I don't hide my beliefs. I'm very vocal about what I believe in and everything like that. I think it's really personally refreshing the fact that I can openly talk about everything because there's absolutely nothing that I have ever done on a computer that they can come back and get me for at this point because each time I was arrested, I had my plea agreements. They all had wording in there where everything that I admitted to have been done illegally up until that point, I could not be charged with ever or anything like that. And since 2010, I have not done a single thing that could even be remotely considered illegal as far as computers and stuff. I took that threat of life in prison extremely serious. I don't know if he was being honest when the judge told me that, but I'm never going to risk it and find out.
Not worth it.
I guess what would be, some advice that you have for somebody that's kind of like in a similar position to where you were back when, before your first, run-in with the law, and they're kind of like, they aren't, maybe they're looking for a way out or maybe they don't even realize anything, what's some advice that you have for them, just granted the circumstances on how to either get out of the situation or I guess navigate that?
Advice to people that are into hacktivism is I'm all for hacktivism. As long as you understand that the risk that you are taking. Don't sit there and get involved in hacktivism and then end up like Sabu and get arrested and then tell on everybody because you can't be a man and take your time. When you do the crime, you need to be ready to take your consequences for it. I definitely believe that hacktivism has its benefits and it has been shown that it can do positive things. But for people that maybe have thought about doing the illegal route, it's not worth it. We spoke on this in the very beginning. Yeah, you might be able to make a little bit more money doing the illegal stuff, doing ransomware and everything, but then it comes with the looking over your shoulder for the rest of your life. There are so many avenues now that you can do legal hacking. When I started doing this, there was no such thing as bug bounties, hack the box, try to hack me, and all of those things. So if you wanted to learn how to do it, you either hacked live systems or you had a lot of money to build the systems yourself, your own lab to hack with. We didn't even have really virtualization much to where you could build VMs and everything to practice on. So we had to practice on live systems. So if you're into it, it's great, but make use of the legal routes that you can do this stuff nowadays. You can make good money if you are willing to put forth the effort, and you never have to worry that the feds are going to kick in your door.
Solid.
Yeah.
I like it. I like it. Well, let's wrap up a little bit here. What is something that you like to do to kind of unwind? You know, you mentioned video games, and travel and taking some vacations. How does that kind of help ward off burnout?
It helps to remind me why I work as hard as I do when I am doing the hacking, because it's like when you die, you don't get to take your money and stuff with you, you know? Like, yeah, I want to be able to leave my daughter everything she could ever want when I'm gone, but I also want to enjoy it. I don't want to waste my time waking up, working 9 to 5 every day, making somebody else money, and dreading my job, dreading life, and just not having fun. You know, you need to have fun. I don't know if this is my only time that I'm going to be alive. Like, I don't know if reincarnation is real or heaven and hell are real or whatever. So I want to make the most out of this one chance that I know for sure that I have on this earth. And you got to work hard in order to be able to play hard, you know? So the harder you work, the more important it is that you take time to enjoy things to remind you why you are working so hard.
I love it.
That.
Mick, you look like you were about to say something. Sorry.
I just said amen to that.
Gotcha. So, final question here before we shut it all down. Are the Cowboys going to the Super Bowl? Is Dak Prescott really, the guy? Is Mike McCarthy the guy?
No.
I don't know about Mike McCarthy. I would prefer to go after Sean Payton. I think with Sean Payton, we would have a much better chance. Jerry Jones has already stated that it's not going to happen this season, but it could happen in the middle of the next season, you know? Jerry Jones has proven he has no problem firing a coach midway through the season, or even benching a quarterback midway through the season and putting somebody else in there. So I don't envy Mike McCarthy, because I know that coming into the next season, he is going to have an insane amount of pressure on him. And as soon as we lose a important game the first time, the rumors are already going to start about whether he's going to be fired and replaced. So, yeah, as far as us going to the Super Bowl, I'd love it if we did. I honestly believe we have the talent to get there, but I don't know what it is that makes it so that we choke in the big games, you know? Like, I mean, we were the number one offense in this past season. Our quarterback set out 2 years ago, the first 5.5 games, setting records, averaging almost 500 yards a game until he broke his leg. And a lot of us were worried coming into this season that maybe he wasn't healed as well, or maybe he was going to be a little bit gun shy, worried it was going to happen again. But he came out there right where he left off. He did an amazing job. I love Dak as a quarterback, but I also love Tony Romo as a quarterback. I do believe that they are extremely good quarterbacks. I don't think that they get enough credit for how good they are, because we can't win on when it really counts the most as far as the playoffs and everything. But I guess we'll see what happens. I'm not going to bet on us to win the Super Bowl next year. Not until we actually get to it.
How about Dan Quinn at defensive coordinator? Because I've seen a lot of mixed reactions about him.
I think our defense this year was insane. Like, the improvement that we had this year on defense was insane. I like Dan Quinn, so I'm hoping that he can build on what he got going this season and keep it going into the next season. We definitely need to do something about our run defense. There were too many times where teams were able to just run the ball straight down our throats. But I think that if we can get some defense, better defense on the run against the run, then we've got a much better shot. We've proved we've got the offense. So now we just need to stop choking in big games and stop the damn run.
I love it. That's a great hashtag moving into the next season. Stop choking the big games, stop the run. That's it. That's the motto. I love it. Well, sir, thank you for jumping on. This has been just an absolute pleasure. We've talked about
no problem at all. It's definitely a lot of fun. I'm really glad that I ended up not being on the plane so that I was able to do this. And my phone battery lasted just long enough. I'm down to 3% now. So we managed. I've got it plugged into my backpack, into my computer, trying to keep it going as long as I can. But we managed to make it last for the about an hour and a half that we've been on here. So definitely happy that it was able to go. And I'm glad that it wasn't too loud, because I'm actually sitting here at the Aria Resort in Las Vegas, out where the Uber picks people up. I was calling an Uber to go to the dispensary to get some weed when my phone notified me that, hey, you've got to do this in 30 minutes. And I was like, well, shit. So I canceled my Uber real quick, and I was like, all right, I'll just go when I get done this.
I love it. I love it. It all works out. It all works out. Well, we'll wrap it up, and we'll be back again next Monday. So be sure to stick around, 7 o'clock Eastern. With that, have a good one.